Hello and welcome to this podcast in the framework of the Eco Families project that we are running together with other partners in the consortium. And I'm here today with Piotr Sadowski, who works for Volonteurope, but he's also one of the organizers of an ECI, and he will tell us in a minute what that is.
So, hello everyone. Thank you very much, Arya. And ECI stands for European Citizens Initiative. And ECI is a mechanism for participatory engagement of EU citizens in possible changes of legislations at EU level. And they can be used for, and they're very often used for interest groups, advocacy groups to advance a certain topic which is close to their heart. So they can range from, currently, for example, there's active ECIs as the protecting video games. There's others which look at the right to abortion. There's one called the ECI for Water, Smart and Resilient Europe, which is the ECI that we as Volonteurope are coordinating. And I'm one of the organizers of this initiative, because we believe that there's a lot of work that needs to be done around water resilience, access to water, how it's governed, but also how it's protected as a resource which is so precious. Because the sad reality is that I think too many, not saying us, but too many people generally take water for granted. I think there's an attitude that go to the bathroom or the kitchen, you open the tap and it's there on demand, like your Netflix. But the wells can run dry, floods can happen, droughts can come in, crops can fail. But that's not only that. I mean, apart from environmental devastation that we have witnessed, especially acute in the last decade, 15 years, 20 years, we've also been witnessing huge social inequalities and social injustices, and they also come into the area of water injustices. So, for example, one of our organizers of the initiative is Sabrina Cajoli from Guadeloupe. Now, even though she lives in an island in the Caribbean, that's still a French territory, that's still an EU territory. Yet their access to water is completely different than your access to water and my access to water. So we need to be much more aware of the fact that it is a precious resource, and that fact that 10 million Europeans go without access to safe, clean drinking water.
So the last point that you mentioned was very interesting. I don't think that people are really aware of this. And in our project, we are trying to make parents aware of how they can live a more sustainable life in order to be ambassadors and inspire their children also. In your initiative, I know that there are lots of young people also involved. Does it also go like the other way around, young people inspiring the older generation? And what do you think could families do now together on a day-to-day basis in order to preserve water or help this issue?
Yeah, I think definitely there is, even though we have, so every ECI needs to have at least 7 organizers behind it. It can be organizations, it can be like NGOs, it can be trade unions, but it can be individual private citizens. So even though Volonteurope is the body with the idea and the drive behind it, our organizers are all individual EU citizens. And okay, there's quite a lot of them being young people, but there's also people of other ages. So they come from really, really different walks of life as well. But every single one of them has a really deep interest in water, and some have it because of being in academia and working on water. And some are because they're activists. Some are because basically they are just surrounded by it. We've got a Dutch organizer who lives, there's water everywhere in the area where he lives, but also it's extremely polluted water, very dirty water. So that's how it works. But your question, whether it comes in terms of how maybe the generations can impact on one another, families, the whole idea behind the ECI came from a project that we did before. So it's interesting to hear about the eco-families, because we completed a Horizon project called FLOW, Future Lives with Ocean and Water. And this was focusing on building a network of youth ambassadors, youth stewards over water, who would basically be these, let's say, these sort of role models for their peers, but also for their families. And that project was very much linked to the idea of foresight. And foresight is about learning from the past, putting it to the context of your present experiences, and looking into the future to be better prepared for various scenarios. And in that project, for example, we asked the young people who were participating in the futures workshops that we run all across Europe they had a bit of a homework. They were asked to go and speak to their grandparents about what their grandparents' relationship with water was. And when they came to those futures workshops, it was really powerful because, for example, they were coming with stories of their grandparents who had, for example, rivers running through their towns or villages, and it was always there, it was always clean. You could go swimming there, you could go fishing, you could pick up a glass, put it there and drink, and nothing would happen to you. And this concept was so alien to the young people who were coming to us as well. And what they were finding out is that in cases where the grandparents are still alive, they've seen a dramatic, almost experience of being really depressed about what it used to be in the past and where it is now. And that impacts on their, in their late stages of life, on their worries about how their grandchildren and their subsequent generations will have it going forward. And that creates a very powerful narrative for the young people who are engaged in the FLOW project, in terms of them wanting to do something, to get some action moving. And this is exactly what we also tried to transpose to the Citizens Initiative, is that, it's a resource that we cannot just take and use up, basically. We have to leave it in at least as good a state as we got it, inherited it from our grandparents, to leave it for the next generation. And that's a quote from Gandhi as well that we used in our event that we did on Monday on just blue transition.
I think this is also true for the planet, right? It's not only for water, it's also for the earth. If you were to give 1, 2, 3, 2 tips to families how they can better manage water in their daily life, what would that be?
I think the one area, for example, is to one shocking statistic, which made me also personally very interested in being one of the coordinators of the organizers of the ECI, is when I found out about how much water is wasted in the distribution processes. So on the one hand, I said earlier that we've got 10 million Europeans who have lack stable access to safe drinking and clean water. On the other hand, you have dozens of percentages of water being wasted through delivery. So the idea, perhaps for the families as well, is to look at things whether what is their standard of their connections as well. It might be easy things, just check the piping systems as well and things like that. But it's also interesting we were talking to another organization who took young people out onto the streets in the and they looked at the back alleys of restaurants just to witness basically exactly what is meant by water wasting, stuff leaking out of pipes, water being just disposed of without any need whatsoever. So it's these things about creating this more awareness, and I think it works both ways, because I'm not the young person anymore myself, but I found something mean to, but I found out about the percentages of how much water is being wasted as well. And that's unfortunately if you want to transpose it more to the water governance and administration, unfortunately this comes from mismanagement. And that's how you use a very simple example and you can get the more complex areas of conversations.
Thank you very much, Millie, for this interviews, and good luck with the ECI. You need 1 million signatures, so we encourage everybody to sign up, and hopefully this will go through. Thanks.
Thank you very much. And you can go to eciforwater.eu, which is available in all EU, official EU languages as well. Because the one thing that I would just add to end is that when you run an ECI, make sure that the language is really accessible and understandable, because it's one thing proposing it to the Commission, it's another thing it is a person's the signature, engagement and signature, especially on a topic which is not an easy topic like that.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.